Falcha, welcome back to our Saturday book. This is video number 2 of Between Death and Life by Dolores Cannon. With Dolores Cannon, maybe. And we're starting video number 2, chapter 4, the schools. So everyone wonders, is your personality obliterated when you die? People worry about that. It'll just be darkness. But no. The time between your death and your next life is a school, and many of her hypnosis subjects describe this state. She said it was fascinating how people from completely different backgrounds, different religions, different countries, different ages, socioeconomically different, all had the same experience to report to her. So a school of knowledge is kind of what you go into, and it's described slightly differently by people. They see what they kind of expect to see. You bring with you what you have, and so it's described as a hall with white pillars suffused in light. It's calm and peaceful, and it's just a different vibratory plane than Earth. And there are classrooms, and it's like Earth, but just different. It's similar, but different. So you can see anything you want, she said. You can experience this vibratory plane as an individual experience. So there's as many descriptions of it as there are people, but many people describe it like this place of learning. She says there is no heaven, but this is a paradise. It's like a perfected Earth. There's a higher spiritual plane where everything is energy, and you have to go through the levels in order to graduate to the next level. So after life, first you go to paradise, which is augmented Earth. Real heaven, it's complete energy. It's when you're all done. So it depends on how advanced your spirit is. She says everybody can look like kind of ectoplasm, that white floaty stuff. I can't read my writing. You get help from other more advanced souls. You learn about karma, life experience, human nature. You decide what problems you want to have in your next life to learn from. The soul knows what it needs to learn, and it draws situations to it to be lessons. There's no rule that says you have to incarnate, but the teachers help you decide when, what, and who you will reincarnate as, at, when. You're always who you are, which is the sum total of all the lives you've lived. You have free will, but individuals are predictable, is how they put it. You choose your path. We only realize the tip of our own iceberg. I thought that was a great way to put it. Believing that you can't change things, so why bother, is being just really lazy, and it's not wanting to grow. You have to have a bit of motivation. It's easy to give in to the burden of life. You have bonds with other souls, and you meet up again and again and again to work things out. It would just be too complicated in life if you remembered all your past lives. It would just get in the way. And when you have kind of feelings about things, that may be your subconscious reminding you of an aspect of your karma. If you remembered everything about all of your past life relationships, you'd bring prejudices and conflicts and bias into the present time. So you don't want to do that. You want to be a tabula rasa, a clean slate. You've got the benefit spiritually, subconsciously of what you've learned, and you have the opportunity of the lessons that are going to be provided to you. And they talk a bit about karma. Karma is, remember I was saying, I often think about it as sin and grace. Well, yes and no. It's balance. It's cause and effect. And cause and effect is a law of the universe. It's part of natural law. It's one of the laws that run everything. So everything you do has a cause and is an effect. So if you could think of it like that, you're motivated to do things by all your past complications, and when you do things, you create this whole other karma too. And the idea is to get it all balanced out nicely so that it's in a state of perfection. Good luck with that. So all souls have been around the same amount of time. It's not like there are old souls and new souls. All souls have been around the same amount of time. We all come from the same source. But some choose to incarnate more often, so they're maybe a little wiser. So it's about earthly experience, how often you've had earthly experience, not about actual age. Earth is not the only realm that we can learn on. You can learn in the spirit world instead of incarnating, but she says that's a bit like reading about something and then actually doing it. Life on earth is a practical lesson. It's hands-on experience, and it lasts longer. It makes more of an impression. Lessons on earth are more lasting. Then she talks a bit about the Akashic records, the records of life. Not many spirits are advanced enough to have full access to them. Not all, nobody who's incarnate has access to them, really. But a different spirit said that they are somewhat accessible. So this is one of the topics where different subjects report slightly different information. And she said that it's not that it's contradictory. It's just that one person may have only been told a certain amount. And it's all got to do with your development. So Akashic records are basically the book of life. And they come in different forms if you want to put them in a physical term, which they're not really, but okay. It's very hard because we're trying to lower everything to our level of understanding, and it's much bigger than that. But there are books that you can read through. You won't be able to read about others. You won't be able to read about your future, but it's kind of magical, but you get information that you need if you go to that resource. So some people can tune into them here on earth, but it's kind of a limited thing. And what you're saying you're looking for about yourself will be there, like not what's going to happen to me, but characteristics, motivations, that kind of thing. So it's like a safe deposit box in a bank. There's lots and lots and lots of stuff stored there, but you're only allowed to get into that one little box that's yours. You only see what's appropriate for yourself at that moment. All you experience automatically goes into the record. It's like a tape of your life, and it's available for reference when the moment is correct, and we don't always understand when that is. Another subject said it's possible to access information about other people if it has a bearing on you that you need to know, and you ask and they decide, big if. So what information is given to you is relevant, and whose it really is doesn't matter. So you might be told something about somebody else's experience and it's completely irrelevant who they are. It's important to just know. The fact that you can see it is proof that it's relevant to you. There's no distinction as to who it belongs to. So I guess what they're saying is that it's all life experiences there, and you can tune into something and it may not necessarily be your experience, somebody else's experience that you can learn from. When it's not appropriate, you won't have access. And some information can be poison, that it's censored for our own protection. Like, you don't need to know things about your future. You need to work them out. See, you're a very small part of your entire self. You, like today, a very small part of what you really are. So your whole self and the keepers of information decide on a subconscious level what you'll know and what you won't know. If you've had bad experiences, they can be a erased from access if they'll be harmful in this life. So like if you were in the concentration camp during World War II, it may not be to your benefit in this lifetime to have access to that information, so you may or may not find out about it. It just depends on if it'll help you and how it'll help you. In the resting place between lives, you work out the trauma of that sort of negative experience, and it's healed. Karma would come to a perpetrator who may or may not review what happened before incarnating. But the karma would have a kind of a payback repercussion in the next life. So let's say you were a Nazi concentration camp guy. You might not get to see that because there's a lesson to be learned in your next life that will be better served without that knowledge. So you may not deal with karma of your immediate past life either. You may be working something out from 500 years ago, Earth time. But just depends on how they decide between lives. So there's no rule about the number of lives you have. It depends on how you live and your karma. Some have to live over and over and over and over and over again to work things out that they've done and to learn what they need to learn. Some people take long rests because of the trauma, and some lives on Earth are rests. They're sort of insignificant lives. You just have a kind of a bland existence and nothing really remarkable happens in your life, like, antagonism with people or trauma or whatever. It's just a very plain life. Skate through life without things bothering you, and people think, God, I wish my life were that easy. Well, they may be somebody who's been through something in a former life, and they're getting a little break. So it's really important not to judge. It's really hard not to judge. It's really important not to judge. We don't know what their accomplishments were in a previous life or what they may be facing next time around. We just don't know. There are other types of schools on other planes of existence besides Earth. People can rest in the plane of a school. They might appear like kind of sleepy and half with it. Others go to a resting place of complete silence and nothingness. It's just whatever you need. The resting place is to erase everything, and then people have trouble forgetting trauma, so the resting place helps because they're recovering from stressful lives. After death, you can go to any number of directions. Different kinds of schools, different planes, other planets, new life, a resting life. It's just all worked out. For others, it's important to remember a bit. There's something really important that they want to remember that they learned from a previous life. And you work all this out with yourself, your karma, your masters, and the other souls that you need to interact with. It's very complicated. Teachers may see your life from a different perspective than you do, and they can help you see things that you haven't seen. The soul can be convinced to incarnate in a way that they would prefer not to. For example, you could be Nostradamus and not want to come back as a girl. You could maybe want to be rich and you have to come back as poor. It depends on the aspect of karma that you're working on, and you can be reasoned with, not talked into it, and it's a consensus of opinion, and you won't, if you really, 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 really don't want to do it, you don't have to, but eventually you'll see the wisdom. Spirits may seem unwilling, but they'll know that they need to learn the lesson. They're strongly encouraged, and eventually they see the importance. Sick or damaged souls need stronger guidance. From the outside looking in, it may seem like they've lost responsibility for their decisions, but they're unhealthy and they need to heal, and they need guidance to heal. It's not punitive, it's not judgmental, it's just more help. Others are eager and impatient to go back. They want to. They may not be ready. So there's nobody that's forced to return. They may go somewhat reluctantly, but they know that it's for their own good, and they do want the result that will come from it. So to never progress as a spirit is actually Christian hell. You make the same mistakes over and over and over. It's like Groundhog Day. It's a form of hell. And it's not permanent. You just have to come to the realization, which eventually you do. Like, okay, I've had enough of this. Sometimes schools on other planes help a soul to deal with this. They just need a change of venue. Spirits see the same plane differently from each other, so we're not necessarily experiencing things the same. It depends on individual set of experiences. There are an infinite number of planes, and some see, when they die, they see everything as gold. There's a gold boat. There's a gold bridge. There's a ball of light. You are the master of your destiny. You decide how you're going to progress or if you're going to stall. And what you see is what you expect. You're the co-creator of whatever is in front of you. All of are creators of their manifest destinies. So people say, well, why is there cruelty? Why do bad things happen? For example, why would somebody volunteer to be born with a handicap? I mean, if you're a spirit and you're making these decisions, why would you do that? Number of reasons. You might need to experience limitations in the physical world to come to terms with yourself. You might learn from it to look at yourself as you really are and not as others see you, as that handicapped person. You actually recognize that you're more than that. You are what you really are, and you are what you think you are, and others see you, and then you change. So it's an object lesson in understanding the real you. It may be that you volunteered to provide an opportunity for patience and compassion on the part of the people who take care of you, or the part of people who might ridicule you or mistreat you. There's a lesson that they're needing to learn and decisions that they can make, and you provide that opportunity. So you're also benefiting from it at the same time. A handicap is being given something that you must overcome. Not to be affected by ridicule, not to take cruelty personally, that those people have something they need to deal with themselves. They don't understand what they're doing, or they are frightened by the concept of a handicap. So a person who talked to Dolores Cannon was blind in one life and learned persistence. And not to take anything that we see, literally, for granted. To have a greater appreciation of the world around us, and this person had to learn to trust. And this was the choice that this soul made before coming into the life. So, if there's a lesson you need to learn, and it's a karmic lesson, other people cannot do it for you. It can't be passive. You have to live it to learn it. So she talked to a young girl who died, the soul of a young girl who died, who'd been a deaf mute. And this soul told her it wasn't a bad life. She incurred no negative karma. She wasn't struggling against her situation. And because she attempted to accomplish something despite her handicaps, it was actually a hugely beneficial life spiritually. And the message that this spirit had for people was that the wrong way to handle a handicap is to expect others to do everything for you. You must always strive for greater heights and not let it pull you down. Yeah, that's easy to say. Always try to do better. Doing nothing, just vegetating, intentionally just, playing video games and collecting disability, that just incurs more negative karma. That's not what we're here for. A handicap can be to atone for a past life or a chance to evolve even further in this life. So you can learn understanding, you can learn not to judge, and that there are actually souls clamoring to incarnate with handicaps, because one lifetime dealing appropriately, spiritually, with a handicap is equal to 10 lifetimes of karma. You influence the people who care for you. We're all affecting others. Everything we do affects others. And there are lessons in how we accept and handle and reject and deny every single thing that happens to us in this lifetime. It's kind of overwhelming. So now we're on chapter 5, the grand tour. So this is sort of like what goes on in this plane of existence after you die. So she has terminology for it just to give us a frame of reference. She calls it the Temple of Wisdom Complex, which is the spirit plane. And she talked about it in her book on Nostradamus when she had John, the astrologer. Remember that, if you've seen that video? John was a young man who was an astrologer who helped her to discuss things with Nostradamus, and he went to this plane. So she regressed him, and he was able to go there, and there was a temple of healing, a tapestry room, and a library. We've talked about the tapestry room, we've talked about the library, we'll go over them briefly. There was also a place of healing. He said the temple of healing was beautiful. It was a round room, really, really tall. The windows were gems with brilliant light coming in that was colored by the gems. And the guardians told him to step into the light rays, and so you go into the middle of the room, and all these lights of different colors from different gems meet in the center, and it's healing. They swirled around him and cleansed him, he said. It was an ecstatic feeling, rejuvenating. He said that your soul is being cleansed of the negative energy around you, and you must concentrate on doing this sort of healing yourself, on the earthly plane. When people who are very ill die, they come to this room to rejuvenate and heal their astral spiritual bodies, and then they're met by spirit guides and they're led on. This particular room is called the Chamber of Colors and Light, and the guide says that not many in the astral state take the opportunity to heal here, but they should, and that you can do this while you're incarnate, while you're asleep. You can resolve, you can work on that, protect yourself with light, and all you have to do is ask for protection. It's not, there's not a magic formula, and it's just an acknowledgement that you need protection and that you want to go on an astral trip, I guess you'd call it, to this chamber of colors and light, and you can do astral healing, aura healing. So, let's see. The guide says it's important to remember that your mission is to help and to serve others. Don't worry about your health problems. Positive energy takes care of that. And I don't know, maybe I'm like a premature soul. We're talking very young, because it's hard for me to I don't not accept it. It's just hard for me to understand that a little positive energy can completely heal you. That's, coming from a medical background, I think, but what about the tumor? So anyway, alcohol and tobacco are not good for spiritual growth. Many souls are waiting to go through this chamber after they've had a difficult death to heal their etheric bodies. They say that if you use psychic healing, you can project this image. You can imagine yourself in a chamber with jewels and the light, and that it actually manifests it. And that the reason that Dolores Cannon is doing all this, they told her, was to help people visualize this through hypnosis, that her skills in hypnosis would come in handy. Not all souls are willing or evolved enough to make the journey. I think that's my problem. But you can tune into it in meditation. So you practice by meditating. So Dolores asks to be talked through a tour around the place, and they go to the tapestry room where the Akashic records are in this big long tapestry we've talked about before. The tapestry room from the previous books is extremely tall with rounded roof and chandeliers and marble walls and floor, and the tapestry is metallic threads of all sizes, and it's like it's a breathing living thing, and it goes on for miles and miles, and it can see every event in it of every person's life ever lived. And it represents the oneness of humanity, that we're all interwoven. It goes on for miles. And there's a point past which any one individual soul cannot go. You're not allowed to see beyond a certain point because of soul evolution. So the threads vary in size from a stringed cables that is the Akashic records. And they explain that, yes, some are in book form. When you're not terribly advanced, you get to look through the books. And when you're more advanced, you can look at the tapestry in part. But it's like levels of reading ability, or, you go to the children's section of the library when that's what your abilities are. And then you graduate to the grown-up section of the library. And then you may go look at the college level books. It's just all about level of growth. And the tapestry does end. It ends in godhood, which is a beautiful light, is all they would say. They kept saying, there's stuff you're not supposed to know. The Guardian says that many living people have seen this tapestry in their sleep. I mean, they're still alive, is what they're saying. That it has been an inspiration for artists, that they come on the astral plane when they dream, and that it inspires them. I think of those beautiful cards I have. Let me, just in case you haven't, I don't use them all the time. It's, self-fulfilling prophecy. Because I don't use them, I don't feel comfortable using them, because I don't always recognize what it is I'm looking at. Let me see if I can find a particularly brilliant picture. Come on now. Okay, well, here's a good one. The moon. They're just beautiful. And these cards sort of strike me as the product of a trip to the Akashic records. They're just so beautiful, Look at that. There's something kind of mystical about them. Okay, let's see here. So people can go on this plane when they dream, and it's easier to go through Earth school than to incarnate in other dimensions. It's much quicker to be here in a body. You can always make amends by understanding universal laws and love on the earth. It helps a lot. Then they moved on to the library, which the walls were made of precious stones along the way. And you enter a huge study full of books and scrolls and manuscripts. The room is entirely of gold and silver and gems, and it reflects light. So it makes its own light for you to be able to read. And she saw what was told spirits were all over studying and preparing for Earth School. There's a sense of purpose and serenity. People, we've heard this before, people are kind of a form, and they're in robes that are see-through, but they're not see-through because they're colored, and they're colored because their aura provides the coloring of the robes, which sounds really pretty. So you're not allowed to look at your own future. They wanted people to know that dreaming is astral travel. Information is relayed telepathically on this plane. There is a scriptorium, a place to read for not advanced souls who need the written word. Everything is for a soul's growth, and it's allowed. Anything that will help you grow is allowed. And that's why we see suffering, why we see children born with birth defects, why we see war and cruelty, etc., etc., etc. There is a lesson in all of this, and it's a contract between all of the parties involved. And it would seem contrary to think that a perfect, loving God would allow suffering. Well, nobody's allowing anything. We're choosing it for the purposes of spiritual evolution. That's a hard one to come up with. Very lowly developed souls would not want to seek this place out because they have very low vibrations and, they're just not into it. Lower vibration souls still are seeking just physical experience. They don't seek out higher things. So spirits they see what your intent is, and they can let you into a higher vibratory plane. If you're asleep and you're trying to astral travel, they can read your motives. They know if your intention is coming from a good place. There are 3 levels on the astral plane, upper, middle, and lower. The lower plane is terrible. It's entities tied to the earth. They're not in a human form. They watch people mistreat and kill each other for entertainment. They like to witness brutality, but there's a purpose. It's not random. They are learning from this. They have low density vibration and can't go higher. It is kind of a version of hell, but don't worry, you don't slip back into that. They can and will essentially learn how to spiritually advance, but they're kind of on a bestial level, and they repeat it over and over. And oftentimes this is controlled on a physical plane by drugs and alcohol. So, you hear about heartless murderers and people who just don't care. This is a spirit that's stuck, but eventually they will be unstuck. They're into base instincts, vices, and you can carry all this into your next life until you learn. If you die a smoker, you might end up not incarnating for a while, but being a spirit and being stuck around incarnated smokers. So if you die with an addiction, your spirit may be required to not move on, but to be around addicts on earth and acknowledge the suffering and what it does to other people and what it does to themselves and how it hampers your evolution until it's like a personal hell, until eventually you get the message and you're not stuck there forever. And it's not punishment. It'll feel bad, but it's a lesson. So we must pray for our loved ones that they're not stuck, that they see the light and move on. When they sense that they've had enough, I get the message, the guides automatically come and lead them on, and then everything's good. So you finally, you'll get matched to an incarnation that has the appropriate lessons for you. However, this is really interesting. The earth is evolving and the vibrations are getting higher, and it's becoming too evolved for these spirits that are stuck in this low level. And so eventually what's going to happen is it won't be possible for them to reincarnate on Earth, but they will go to a different planet that has a lower level of evolution to continue their process. Your energy's not lost. It just won't be specifically here on Earth. More evolved souls can bypass all of this when they die and head right for the temple of knowledge and wisdom. Now, this is a mid-level kind of astral plane where they can manifest happy situations if they want to for a while. So they kind of, if you want, like, for example, the example that they used, and this is only an example, it's not true for everybody, but you've made a lot of progress and you kind of liked happy middle-class American life. You could feel like you're in a suburban paradise. It's not really very advanced, but it's very happy. You're kind of waiting for your next life, and you're not really making progress, but it's a good experience. And most souls are there for a while. It's like suburban America. You're drawn together in a family and a friend group that share karma. And you kind of need to be coaxed to go to school, to the temple for spiritual growth. But you need this time. You need this little time to just recuperate, I guess, enjoy, and then you will go into your new incarnation. And then the upper astral plane is described as beautiful. People can also imagine that they have homes there, but there's all kinds of learning, and it's the place to be. That knowledge is freedom, and many of these souls can incarnate quickly if they choose. It's like a little bit more vibratory high. So people, for example, they give an example of people living in a famine may very well have lived past lives of overindulgence, and their suffering is processed into a higher spiritual energy. So suffering teaches us that we have to grow spiritually. Then there's kind of this, she calls it the computer room, where they all sit down and decide how matches will be made karmically between groups. So if you misuse your body, you'll eventually have a life that you suffer because of it. It's just how it goes. And people who believe in heaven and hell are kind of in a mid-astral level. It's very middle-class America is how I thought of it. There are levels that are higher than upper astral, but we're tied to a body, and she was told you need not concern yourself about that. So once you evolve above the upper astral level, you never come back, unless there's a physical mission that becomes really, really important. And an example would be Buddha or Jesus, that they were from a much higher level. They were just spiritually advanced souls, and they volunteered for a purpose. Beyond the astral, there's the spiritual rejuvenation, and then learning to be a universal spirit. So you're still learning, but you don't need to do it on earth anymore. The eventual goal of all of this is perfection. Each lifetime teaches a new quality, and we have hundreds of lives because there's a whole lot to learn. And often we have to repeat lessons over and over. And they said the average spirit incarnates on earth alone about 120 times. So then she was shown a beautiful garden. She said the difference between the astral world and the real world is the astral world's the same but different. So you see flowers, but the flowers are utterly perfect, and they never rot, and they never get weird, and they're just perfect. That everything is beautiful. And the gardens we grow are just a paltry reflection of what the real thing is. All earthly physical things have a counterpart in the astral world. The earth is just a reflection of the spiritual world. And then she was told, you've seen enough. So some things we just aren't supposed to know. Chapter 6, different levels of existence. She learned some more from a different woman who was a subject, who said she was on, can't read my writing here. The third level. She's learning how to enjoy day-to-day occurrences and make them count. We have to be trying to help people so that all humans can move forward from this physical realm. So we try to get the attention of humans we think are capable of handling the information. This is why we have this book. For whatever reason, you, I, we're ready to hear this, is what they're saying. Only a certain number of people are open to it. Neither good nor bad. They're not worse, we're not better. It's just a matter of evolution. This is the 6th level. I'm sorry, I misread the number. It's not the 3rd level. I couldn't read my handwriting. It's the 6th level. So we're trying to open up spiritual leaders, inventors. She said, people who are more open to this information may never be considered important people on the physical plane, but she said it's like being a parent to somebody who's important, like your child is Jesus, you know. You don't get to be famous, but he does, that kind of thing. It's important to be able to get information out there, and that's a really valuable role. So we have that job of talking to people about this without, you know, going door to door in twos with pamphlets. So we work through our dreams, and we can work through their dreams and through their meditation. And that's the 6th level. So then we have a 7th level. So we've got the base plane, and then the mid, the physical plane, and then the astral, the 3 astral levels. And then the 6th plane is where they try to help through meditation and dreams. And then the 7th is where a lot of creativity comes from. It's like an inverted pyramid. God is at the top, which is the longest level, and the people at the point on the bottom. And as you go up, you become more opened up and more spiritual. You broaden your awareness, become closer to God. The top is really infinite. You advance by incarnating and by spiritual development. You don't need to incarnate, but it's more efficient use of your time. More complete way of learning. The ultimate goal is to be one with God, reach perfection. So many have achieved this. People get caught up in the world and they stray from the path. Ego, vanity, loose spiritual contact, and lose their understanding of the truths. And other ways besides incarnation can help spirits to evolve. Like they can stay spirits but help others by being guides and assisting and helping in dreams, and be teachers, and be a friend on the spiritual plane. So we're all ascendant beings. We're forming a ladder, and there are others whose purpose is stationary. It's like a marathon. There are the people who run, and then there are people who serve a very useful position by standing on the sidelines and giving water. So the ascendant beings are the runners, and the stationary beings are the ones who give out water. They're like angels, and everybody crosses the finish line. There's no winners or losers. There's no first or last place. It's just helping each other to get there and doing the hard work of getting there. So information about these levels is sometimes slightly different from different hypnotic subjects, but she said what she could get out of it was that different levels are really kind of different vibratory dimensions, and how many. Some say several, some say 10, some say infinites, and she suspects that the differences of specifics have to do with the level of evolution of the person. The reality is you get closer to perfection as you climb. Earth is level 5, physical level. Now here are some really interesting little facts. There's this elemental level, which is, now we're not talking about the awful people. This is a different kind of categorizing. These elementals are pure emotion and pure energy. They will eventually have personalities. They're sort of in a waiting period. They have very powerful potential, but they can be swayed, and they are just energies that are out there. And no energy out there is going to hurt you if you're not volunteering to be a bad player. The second level is the protector of trees and hills. So each tree and plant has its own, like the Greeks believed. They were onto something, right? They believed in sprites and dryads, and they have a sense of mischief rather than intelligence, but they are kind-hearted and not to be afraid. Some people are more comfortable coming back at a different level. So there are actually fairies, leprechauns, little people. They're more in tune with the spiritual level because they know how to manipulate the energy, and they exist in a spirit realm. They're not really on the physical realm, but they do manifest on the physical level. I mean, they appear to people. So it's true. You can see fairies, you can see leprechauns, you can see spirits, elves, and stuff like that. And Jacques Vallée's books talks a lot about this, and speculating, are these aliens? What are they? Well, they're spirit energy. They're spiritual, and they are souls that have they have influence over nature, the forest, the sea, the air, and they take care of nature, and then they can go on and take care of themselves. It's like this little job that they have to develop spiritually until they're ready to be people. They will evolve and they will incarnate as humans. We have been them. They're just young souls. They have talents, but not magic. But they're in a spiritual realm, so it may seem like magic to us. They're easier to see them if you're clairvoyant. They don't experience death. They individualize. So they cease to be like just spirit nature things, and they become people. They're not negative. They care for nature. If they seem negative, it's mischievous, and it's mischief, and you can just dismiss it. Now, there are demons that masquerade as them. These are negative astral entities, and they're mad because they can no longer incarnate on Earth. And it doesn't happen much anymore because we've evolved beyond it. The good ones might contact people. These entities might contact people when they're asleep and say things like, please don't abuse the land, or please don't abuse the water. There's spirits that care for the group of souls of plants and the group souls of rocks and dirt and sky and stuff. They're like helper souls. And the negative ones, all these stories, exorcisms and possessions and stuff, it's about how open you are to having that happen to you. If you're already freaked out by the idea and you don't like it, then don't worry about it. It's not going to happen. Ancients understood that these souls helped guide the plant and animal kingdom. They tried to tell us, but what do we call it? Mythology. So after the Earth shift, they're going to move up in a scale of evolution. They're going to play an important role. They're preparing the world for the shift, the animal, plant, nature world. When they do incarnate, the Earth will be at a higher planetary vibratory system, and this will help. They will help rebuild the world and help traumatized animals. At the Earth shift, most human souls, unevolved, will be sent to other universes to begin a cosmic journey again. You won't be destroyed. Don't worry about it. Gonna go on. The more spiritually evolved people will come back to Earth to cope with whatever kind of mess we've got left. Animal spirits are different. Most of them have a group spirit, a herd mentality, like a hive mind. They don't have individual personalities. I don't know. I could kind of argue with this a little bit. They don't have individual personalities like humans, but eventually they will evolve and begin spiritual growth. So it's a stepping stone to spiritual evolution. We all go through it. We all start out, as a very disorganized mass of energy. We're a gas, we become matter, we become a plant, an animal, then a human, and then divine. And when you show love to an animal, it gets more of a personality and it will individuate sooner. It raises their consciousness. So kindness to animals is a spiritual mitzvah. It's a good thing to do. Humans with no conscience, what about them? They're stuck on the third level. They're allowed to incarnate in hopes that they will raise themselves up. They live less than a life. They have no intelligence to be good or bad. They're impulsive and physical and tied to that. Now, sociopaths, interestingly, are on the 4th level. They also don't really have a conscience, but they have intelligence, and that's what makes them dangerous. They're unevolved spirits. And on the 5th level, you have just ordinary day-to-day existence, like what's going on right now. And on the 6th level, which is the spirit realm, you might still be locked to the earth by your own motives or the grief of your family. And that was something I thought was really interesting. They said when somebody dies, you can miss them, but don't wallow in grief because it ties them here. 7th, 8th, and 9th are the higher spiritual planes, the great masters. And in the 10th, you're one with God. And it's very rare to go backwards. If a spirit is that low, it will be kept between lives to heal and increase its vibrations. Some people in the 6th plane have 1 foot in the physical and 1 foot in the spiritual. It's interesting. I don't know if you remember the conversation I had with Denise about autism. And we were speculating that sometimes people with autism do seem like they have 1 foot here and 1 foot not here. Is that what they're talking about? That's an interesting thought. And somebody asked me the other day about indigo children. And I think I was a little bit snarky about it because, okay, let's just be real here. I had friends, and their children, their every fart was a golden drop, and they were indigo children. And I don't know. I think we're all that way with our first child, but after you've had like almost a half a dozen children and you're older and you're worn out, your child would have to be Einstein, Galileo, and Leonardo da Vinci all rolled into one before you would be too impressed. So I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. I think everybody has the potential for it. Everybody. Some people just focus on it more. So let's see here. Avatars are close to divine. They'll come to earth like the bodhisattva, and they come to help. They are the enlightened ones. And our language is inadequate to explain all this. Then a different person started telling her about these planes of existence. The planes occupy the same space. You're just not aware of each other. They're all on different vibratory frequencies. It's like the radio. If you have an old-fashioned radio and you turn it on, you get AM radio, and you only get certain stations. But there's all sorts of stuff going on in the atmosphere. It's like that. You can sometimes increase your vibrations with meditating. She says, we see through a glass darkly. There are intermediary planes where you can interact with ones on different planes, and it's especially in your sleep, to work on the karma with them. Your mind and your ability to increase your vibration is the only barriers that hold your soul back. Elementals are the energy of rocks and plants, etc. Just a different frequency. They're a more primitive energy form. They're living with the power of life, but they're not individuated. They operate under different rules. Their energy can affect us. They can interact with your psychic abilities. So if you're really clairvoyant, you might be able to see them. And they know what you want, and they can sometimes interfere with things to influence you in a subtle way. They're mischievous, but it can be interpreted as negative if it's a little scary, you know. There is no purgatory. There is no hell. If you have a near-death experience and you think you've gone to hell, it's because you expect it. It's the negative influences that you've had in your life, people telling you lies. So it's just a state of mind, and how you perceive elementals is the same thing. It's just energy around you, and it's just how you perceive it. Death, they said, is no more to be feared than breathing. If you expect it'll be okay, it'll be okay. You just go to a resting place, and if you freaked out when you die and you need help, you will rest to ease the trauma, and this attitude will dissipate. And there is an age of accountability, like a human physical life age of accountability, where you really do finally have the neurological ability to understand right from wrong. And it's different for everyone. For some people, a 5-year-old will do it. And for others, they could be 12 years old and they don't know what's up. You know, it just depends. And here's, once again, religion is a corrupt political power, a tool to control the masses. Religions grossly misunderstand spirituality. It's a good place to end. Okay, I will be back. That's something to think about, isn't it? I mean, there's such devotion. Maybe that's not such a good thing. Okay, so I will be back, and I hope you're enjoying this. It's very interesting, and it's long as foil.